Hello and welcome to Soul Love with Kimness. I am Kim van der Zande, your host, and I'm super excited to share another episode of Soul Love with you, where we share inspirational and empowering stories from the heart. We talk about the beauty and the shadows as both are part of the ascension journey, to remind you that you are powerful, you are magical, and to have trust in what you feel to be true deep within. Enjoy this next episode of Soul Love. Before we start the next Soul Love conversation, I want to invite you to check out my amazing book, Activating the Flower of Love, a sacred guide for manifesting your deepest desires and highest calling. This sacred book, filled with powerful tools and activations, will guide you to open your heart to the beauty and wisdom within you, empowering you to create the life you deeply desire from the foundation of love. You can find Activating the Flower of Love in all the major online and offline bookstores in ebook or paperback, or you can check it out through my website, kimness.nl, where you can also discover the different ways of working with me and the latest updates on new starting programs. Enjoy this next episode of Soul Love. Welcome everyone to a new episode of Soul Love, and today I have the honor and I feel excited to share a sacred conversation with Nick Levesque. I hope I pronounced your last name correct, but otherwise you can find his name in the bio. So it's really great to share this conversation. We've been following each other on Instagram for a while, and I really love your empowering posts and your podcast shares. And I'm really curious, like I already know your story a little bit, but everyone tuning in, like what sparked you to be on this journey? Because I know in my own space it's like we go on this growth journey, but I love it and I honor especially also men that are stepping into this space of vulnerably sharing and really owning your uniqueness and having the softness but also the power. So yeah, a little
Awesome.
introduction. Yes.
Thank you very much, Kim. I appreciate that. And awesome, I want to thank you for inviting me over as well. I do appreciate that. It's nice to connect with you actually face to face this time,
It
which is
is,
nice.
yes.
So and not just through Instagram, so that's always nice. But yeah, that's a great question. I think for me, personally, and you know a bit of my story as well, but it's really, for me, it really started when I was about like 21 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I went through kind of this, my own dark night of the soul, if you will, right?
Yes.
So for those who may not have heard that term, it's really just a point in your life where it's kind of like a breaking point. But I truly believe that breaking point can make you stronger, right? Like I think that through those hard times is where you learn a lot. And for me, that's where I was at a specific point in my life where I was 21 years old. I was kind of this prisoner of my own mind, if you will, right? I really didn't know how to sit with myself, my emotions and such. And you made a very good point speaking about men. A lot of men are really not taught how to sit with ourselves and our emotions and how to deal with these things, right? Because of all these, societal beliefs that men don't cry, all these different things, right? So I have a lot of respect for men and women, of course, but especially men in the space as well that, are more open to sharing and expanding on this journey, right? And that's personally a mission of mine as well, is to really help men do that as well. But I noticed that, like when I was 21, I had trouble with this, right? I had a lot of trouble with this. And, I would turn to different, personally, different substances and such to try to numb myself, to just not feel anything, right? Because that's the thing, is we're afraid to feel, right? Because feeling is very painful, if you will. So for a lot of us, and a lot of us just don't know how to sit with that and truly process that, right? And that took me a long time to really, kind of navigate as well, right? Obviously, I did a lot of coaching, therapy, many books, and I believe that everyone should try different healing modalities, because I think that's really what's, not one thing works for one person, right? And sometimes we need a mix of a few things. But for me, I think kind of the breaking point, obviously there was a lot in there as well, but it's, my mother has been sick for a very long time, but at that point in life, she was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer. And on top of everything that she was going through already, and myself not being at a good spot, that kind of just, it's kind of put me in a deeper hole. And I was like, okay, so I was like, I need to get out of this and kind of, find a way out of this. Because my mother, even though my mother is the person that taught me what the real meaning of acceptance is, in my personal opinion anyways. And even despite all she was going through, she accepted it, right? And to me, acceptance doesn't necessarily mean that you have to like or agree with the situation, but at a certain point is you have to navigate through it, right? So you don't have to agree with what's going on. Obviously, she wasn't agreeing with being sick for so long and such, but at a certain point, when I had that conversation with her, she was like, well, there's not much I can do, right? I'm doing everything that I can, which is another part of acceptance, right? Just because something's happening, it's not like, oh, it is what it is. No, no, like if you have something you can do and steps that you can take, right? She was going to chemo, doing all these different things. And it really shifted my perspective on a lot of things. And it was like, if she has that resilience to do this, that
Hmm.
I can also help myself through
Yeah.
whatever it is I'm going through, right? That I went through this whole soul searching journey, books and many different things, therapy, obviously, coaching, all these different things. And throughout everything that I've learned in my own life experiences, I was like, well, I think this would be something that I would like to help people with as well. So that's really kind of how my story started and how I got into coaching and my podcast and trying to reach
Yes.
people and help people, right? So yeah.
Love that. There were so many empowering shares, but sometimes it is that the most dark nights of our souls ignite us into our light or into where we are today and sharing, because it is, we went through it. And that's what I love in your sharing. And then I'm all about embodied experiences. So you went
Mhm.
through it yourself, and then we can hold space for others because we've seen the darkness, but in so we've also come into the light or into resilience or acceptance of who we are. And I also love your share of your mother, because in the end, it's about letting, like when we truly surrender to what is, it's
Mhm.
somehow we stop an inner resistance. We stop judging ourselves or blaming ourselves, or like it's this softness that comes over us. And in a beautiful way, then things can come on our path that are aligned, or we're more open to new ideas, because otherwise you have the illness, but then also there is this inner mindset and is starting to interfere with what is happening. So I think that's really beautiful. And sometimes it's a good reminder. And I know each and every one of us, we're going through these life experiences, and everyone has its own things that are happening, and it doesn't mean your thing is less more important than someone else, but we can learn to see, like, okay, if someone, we can be inspired. I think that's what I really love in your story, and that inspiration can give hope and can give, okay, if someone can do it, why can't I? And but sometimes it's a hard journey and we need different things, and it's like this onion we're all peeling, and each layer is asking a new modality or a new awareness or a deepening um, thing. But what I really loved about your share is the emotional, like accepting your emotions, because I think for all of us, we've never learned in school or whatever it was
Yep.
to express ourselves and to know what our emotions are and the power of them, because otherwise we put them in and they get stuck, and we get all these icky things within ourselves, where our emotions are very natural. And I think especially then for men or boys, like all
Mhm.
the paradigms, like boys don't cry or be tough or be, but imagine what this does with your life force energy, with your flow, with your, yeah. So I want to invite, like, how are you now guiding men or supporting them to create the awareness, like it's not that you're soft or that you're like you don't have the power, because I think stepping in your emotions and allowing them to be is power, because then you can truly be resilient instead of having this wall that, yeah. And I don't know how that's in your life or the people you guide, but I think there's so much wisdom in that part. Yeah.
I love that. That's a beautiful question, Kim. And yeah, that's definitely something. So, I help both, women and men as well. But,
Yeah.
when I work with men, one thing that I try to get them to understand, I think the first part of anything is understanding, right? So, and it's also letting go of these beliefs that you have, because a lot of times, like these beliefs are introjected, right? Like, so they're not necessarily your beliefs to hold on to, right? So
Yeah.
maybe, it's kind of these generational beliefs, if you will. Maybe like the grandfather put that down to the father and then to the son as an example, right? So I think first and foremost, it's understanding that these beliefs that you hold may not be your own, and it's time to reevaluate what your values and your beliefs and all these different things are, right? So I think that's kind of the first understanding of it as well. But also for men, there's a few different components that I like to really dive into. There's a great book for any man listening to this if you really want to tap into that masculine energy and get a better understanding of that. It's called King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, and it is probably the best book you can ever read. I'm big on books, by the way.
Nice.
I
Great.
love books and I love to recommend books, but King, Warrior, Magician, Lover really talks about these different, kind of like these different archetypes that men have, where we're able to embody different energies, or sometimes, a combination of these, right? We can step into our
Mhm.
magician, our warrior, our king when we need to, right? Or the
Yeah.
lover when, in different aspects of our lives. And I won't get into all this right now, but basically that's a part of it. But I think also, in my personal opinion, what makes, a man strong and masculine, if you will, is also having that balance of feminine, right? So
Hmm.
that balancing both. And I think, like, a lot of us, like for me, especially for a long time, right? And this is something that I worked through with my own coach. And that's what she was saying, right? Like a lot of my energy tool was like 80% masculine, 20% feminine, right? So it's
Yeah.
about learning to kind of balance those things out, right? So, and that takes time. It's not an easy process, right? It's about understanding, but I think again, it comes down to understanding the beliefs that you hold first and foremost, and then obviously, tips and tricks and working through how to properly sit with yourself and your emotions. And
Mm.
because, and that's something I tell to, people that I work with as well, especially if you're someone that's pushed stuff away, right, for a long time, or put it in your shadow as an example. Because, a lot of children growing up, for example, depending on the family dynamic as well,
Mhm.
some people are taught that anger, as an example, is a bad emotion, right, or
Yeah.
something. And to me personally, there's no such thing as good or bad, but it's about, or sorry, no such thing as a bad or good emotion is what I'm trying to say, right? I think all emotions are messengers. They're here to teach us something, or
Yeah.
they're trying to tell us something, right? So if we're pushing that into our shadow, that's not ideal as an example, right? So, and that could be with other emotions as well, but it's also about when you're learning to sit with these things and processing your emotions, because typically, like, an emotion will last about 90 seconds, but then we will overthink, or we'll think about something, and then it's just got, and then we're just dragging on this anxiety or whatever it is that we're going through, right? So I
Yeah.
think it's about learning to sit with that, breathe into it, but also, making that space for it as well. But it's supposed to be uncomfortable, but never too overwhelming, right? So like if it's to a point where it's very overwhelming, then it's good that you're probably working with someone as well, right? Maybe a coach or a therapist or someone that can really hold space for you and allow you to explore these on a deeper level, right? Because if you're someone who's suppressed, right, or repressed unconsciously for a long time, there's a lot of things that might come up as well, right? So there's a lot of different aspects and, varieties here that you can approach to this. But for me, really, it's about the understanding that, it's okay to have feminine energy with the masculine, right? Just because you're holding on to that feminine energy and allowing yourself to feel and, talk about things where you're never really talking about, right? And
Mhm.
one thing I did personally, Kim, a few years ago, and I recommend this to every guy out there, is I went to a men's retreat, right? I went to a men's retreat where it was 18 men. Some of them had seen each other, most of them haven't. And we were all talking about our traumas and putting men in a completely awkward situation where we were hugging each other a lot. We were, all
Mhm.
these different things where for
Yes.
men, it's like, oh my goodness, like, what is this, right?
Yes.
And you're seeing people that you've never talked to, and literally you're standing in front of each other, you're looking each other deep in the eyes, and you're talking about your deepest traumas, right? Things, and that for me is a big part of not only owning to your masculine, but allowing your feminine to rise up as well, right? Talking about these things. And it makes you realize that other men are struggling with that as well, right? So if like
Yeah.
specifically, I know there's retreats for women as well, but for men especially, since we're not really naturally inclined to
Yes.
process these things. So highly, I would recommend a men's retreat to anyone who can do that, or if it's
Yeah.
available like throughout your surrounding area. A powerful experience that I experienced myself.
Mhm.
So very cool. Yeah.
I think it's really beautiful. And there's a shift happening. In the end, we're
Yeah.
all being invited, to, also women, but men, to have
Yeah.
this balance with masculine and feminine energies in our field. But I love your share about men retreats, because it's like in the recognition, in the softness. But there's one person that needs to take the lead. Because, but that's maybe a signal. I don't know the correct English word. But when you're in a bar and you're doing a beer, and so it's like more easily maybe to talk about different things. But that's what I love about this retreat. It creates this safe space, because in the end,
Yes.
we're all human. We all have emotions, deep down emotions, and emotions that we're here to express. But it's sometimes we need to feel safe to let these walls go down. We need to feel safe to uncover what is there. And I also love, as you share, because I think it's so important to understand, sometimes our awareness has a certain idea of where a trauma is coming from. But most
Mm-hmm.
of the time, the root is something very different. So as we start to unravel that part, suddenly all other things are coming up. And that can be really overwhelming. And that can be really, but then it's holding space for ourselves. And we also have blind spots. So that's why a
Yeah.
coach is very important sometimes, or someone holding space for us to, because those are painful, because we've pushed them away. So there's a lot of contracted energy. But I love that you shared as well, like the 9 seconds, because if we truly, if we, I see that with my girls, when they're happy, they're happy. But when they're angry, I also allow them to be angry, because
Yes.
then the energy can be released instead of them contracting them. And then when they are 30, it comes out in I don't know what way. But if we learn that from a young child, it's okay to have your emotions. It's okay to express yourself. It doesn't take that long. And even because sometimes we can also feel like, okay, I'm so afraid of these emotions. I'm afraid I'm going to drown in it. But most of the time, when you allow yourself to really witness what is happening and to let yourself feel, you notice maybe you cry 10 minutes or maybe an hour. But at one point, it will really stop. And at one point, you will notice you create space for something more aligned to come on your path. And yeah, so I think that's really such a beautiful, beautiful share. So what has really helped you in your journey, like the last couple of years? Because there's one thing to receive all of these and to go deeper within yourself, but to then guide others. Well, what has really helped you to step into that space or?
Yeah, so for me, I think it's a combination of different modalities, right? Like for me personally, I'm, and like yourself, Kim, I'm sure like you not only do you like these things, but you love learning new
Yeah.
modalities and trying new things as well, right? So for me, that's why like and as an example, like because and this is the thing, right? Like I think for us, as healers, if you will, to get into this space and help people, I do think we need to have a certain level of healing ourselves, right? I don't believe we're ever fully healed. I don't believe that at all. I think life's a journey, and whatever happens, in a few years from now, something can happen that I've never experienced before, right? But at least now I've got better tools to equip myself to handle those uncertainties of life, right? Because life is so uncertain, we never know what's going to happen from day to day, as an example, right? But for me, there's been different things, right? Like as an example, obviously coaching and therapy. I think those are, non-negotiables. And I think everyone in the world should have a therapist, to be quite honest. And
It's your
I feel
greatest
like,
gift. Yes, it
right,
is.
right. Like I
Yes.
think it's, like a lot of people like myself as an example, I'm a gym fanatic, right? Like obviously I've been going to the gym for 12 years. I do this daily.
Yes.
It's my ritual. But, therapy, if you will, or coaching or something like that, is like your mental membership, if you will. It's like this mental fitness membership, if you will, right?
Yes.
You take care of your body. And I truly believe, like, even with clients that I work with, I try to get people to work out and move their bodies in some way, shape, or form. Doesn't need to be the gym. A lot of people keep saying, like, the gym does not need to be the gym. Go walk, go do
Yeah.
something else. There's so many different, again, modalities and ways to train, right? But yeah,
Yes.
so for me, many things have helped me. So first and foremost, fitness is the one of them, right? Because I think mind and body go together. And I think that you need both. You need to, a lot of people that aren't feeling well, if you just make changes to your body, right? Your
Hmm.
physiology, just how you stand, what you're eating,
Yeah.
just taking care of, your health, that helps your mental health significantly, right? This has been proven
Yes.
time and time again. So fitness obviously being one of them, different modalities and coaching, like I said, therapy, coaching, all these different things have been phenomenal for me. Also, like I've been trying to different things like the men's retreat. But for me personally, Kim, I would say one of the biggest things ever is reading. Personally, for me, reading books, and because I think there was a quote that I read that basically said books are a gift that you can open time and time again. Like you can return to them time
Lovely.
and time again, right?
Yes.
So it's like you read something once, but then you read it again, and it's like, oh my goodness, right? And for me personally, I think books have helped me more personally than anything else, right? And then you apply, obviously, knowledge is not power. Applied knowledge is power. You
Yes.
can't just read it and not apply what you're reading. Obviously, that's,
Yes.
those things go hand in hand. But I think, if someone's stuck somewhere, or, someone's stuck in life, sometimes, especially in our journey, speaking for myself here personally, I remember when I started and I was at my kind of dark night of the soul,
Hmm.
being a very introverted person, I didn't know how to reach out for help. I didn't really know how to do those things. So
Yeah.
books helped me a lot, right? Like, because I was going, like, like I said, I was a prisoner of my own mind. And at one point I remember just Googling, like, okay, like maybe I should just read a book, right? And maybe
Mhm.
reading a book and stuff will help me, get better, a
Yeah.
bit more understanding, and then maybe it'll give me kind of that drive or courage to ask for more help, coaching, therapy, whatever, right? And I
Yeah.
think, again, I think that's very subjective. It depends on the person, of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
But for me, that's what it was, right? So I remember, like, when I was really stuck, I went on Google and I did some research about a book specifically for my problem. And that's
Yeah.
the thing about books. You can find something specifically for what you are
Hmm.
going through in your life, right? If you're
Yes.
having trouble with your mindset, there's a book for that. If you're having trouble with trauma, there's many books for that, right? It
Yeah.
doesn't matter, right? There's many books for each individual, right? So I remember, like, for me, I did some research, and one of the books that shaped my life forever is The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. Like, I preached that
Yes.
book, right? And there's the quote in his book that says, rather than being your thoughts and emotions, be the awareness behind them, essentially, right? And that to me shifted my life substantially, because it's like you start realizing that you're just a witness of your experience, right? You're witnessing your thoughts, you're witnessing your emotions and such, but you don't need to get trapped in them, right? They're part of you, but they're not you actually as you are, right? And obviously that's, that goes much deeper. But
Yes.
what I'm saying is, like, these little insights, right? You can like, for me personally, this is how I really discovered reading was substantial for me. And I think, again, a lot of people, what they don't understand about reading is a skill. It's not something you develop overnight. And even like in high school, I hated reading, right? Like
Yeah.
honestly, because there was
Yes,
first and
but
foremost
this is
not
totally different reading. Yes.
100%. That's exactly the thing, right? So
Yes.
I feel like we weren't really taught how to read. Like most books were like well, anyways, in my high school, a lot
Yes.
of books were like handpicked and like we had to write essays and such. So for
Yes.
me, reading wasn't really fun. And then when I really got into reading on my own terms and reading what I wanted to read about,
Yeah.
then I was like, oh my goodness, this is a whole other
Amazing.
ballgame, right?
Yes.
And a lot of my healing has gone through reading,
Yeah.
right? So that's what I'm saying. Like, if you're stuck somewhere in life and you're just, maybe you're a bit like I was, very introverted, you may not know how to reach out for help or something, reach for a book. Like, honestly, like I truly believe that a few well-selected books can put you months ahead in your healing journey, if not years, depending on obviously how much you're investing in yourself. And
Yes.
they're not that expensive, right? There's libraries, you can go rent them if you want.
Yes.
But yeah, so anyways, so all in all, I think there's a lot of different things that I've done, Kim, but I think reading for me personally has been a game changer.
I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah. And it's so, because it doesn't have a high, like, it's very easy, accessible for everyone. So I think that's
Yes.
really beautiful. And it really inspires us. When you're reading the right books, it inspires us. And what I always notice is the moment we're reading, we're stopping out of the mind chatter. We stop, especially if
Yes.
you're blocked in this mind prison. For that moment of reading, the mind prison is off and you're focused on the letters and you're focused on the inspiration, expanding your awareness. And
Mhm.
like it's I also love that you said fitness and being healthy, but in the end, it's a daily conscious choice. So as you're
Yes.
focusing on your like, okay, what do I choose to spend my energy, my time? And a book can be a really beautiful way, inspiring way, expanding way to go out of the limitations and into the possibilities. And in because it's really like sometimes we need inspiration. Sometimes we can feel like, okay, the world around, because I think that's also the beautiful thing about books. It expands your world. Because
Yes.
sometimes the world we're living in is a lot of the things that are happening in our, like it created maybe where we are. So we need inspiration, we need new ideas, or we need new. So I think that's beautiful because there are many beautiful depth, amazing things that are shared. So I think that's amazing. So the power of now, is that another book you would like to share? Like, okay, if someone is on this path, like that really inspired you.
Oh, that's a good question, Kim.
No, no,
So many
yeah,
books.
no. I'm always not good at names as well, so I'm not putting you on the spot. But I
No,
think
no,
it's
no.
no.
I I do have one for sure. There's definitely one that I would recommend to anyone in the world. It's called The Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl.
Okay.
And basically he is a Holocaust survivor from the Auschwitz camps and such.
Yeah.
But the beautiful thing about it is he's a psychologist, right? So he's
Mhm.
going through the concentration camps from the lens of a psychologist. And anyways, it makes you realize that a few things like acceptance, like we talked about earlier, right? So
Yes.
he was pushed into there, but at a certain point, he accepted where he was, and obviously you know, that's a big topic in and of itself because
Yes.
concentration camps and such. So like that's a lot to handle for obviously a person, but um, I think the core of the book for me personally though was what it made me realize is that like sometimes your problems aren't as big as they seem, right? And there's
Mhm.
always kind of this a lot of problems are big, don't get me wrong, I'm not discrediting that, but also like
Yeah.
is you can find a way, through anything in life. I personally believe so, right? Like even just again coming back to my mother for a second, seeing her fight through all she's been
Yeah.
fighting through, right? I think if you have really the willingness, you can get through anything. And I think that book just put that into perspective for me.
Mhm.
And yeah, so definitely I would recommend that to anyone. Absolutely. Yeah. So A Man's Search for
Yeah.
Meaning, Viktor Frankl is
Yeah.
phenomenal. Yeah.
Yeah. I've never read that book. But if you just see, just in general, people all around the world finding inspiration, finding hope, even finding
Mhm.
joy in the most tough situations. And I know in my own journey, I was sick a couple of years back, very sick. But for me, even waking up each day and just seeing the sunlight was a blessing. But sometimes and I don't wish that for everyone, but sometimes we need to go through certain experiences to really see what is important. Our
Yes.
health, the loved ones around us, just the sunlight, the butterfly that is coming by. Sometimes we're searching for such big things and then we feel such failures because we don't have it. But those are the search of the mind. If we're really going into our soul, it's just blessed that it's alive every day and it just sees. So I think it's also really a mindset perspective that is a shift that needs to happen. Or if you truly desire this deeper connection and this like right, this shift, like it's not in the making millions or having a bigger house
Right.
or a bigger job, or yes, that can be beautiful and it can create freedom, but the true essence is more in the subtle things and in the little beautiful things that are around us. And then we can feel this joy in wherever you are. And that's, I think that you've shared that as well beautifully. It is in the resilience, because that's also what I notice in my own journey as we step into this space of growth and expansion and healing, where before maybe one traumatic experience would take us off for a month, and now it's just in a
Right.
couple of hours we're able to reset ourselves, sometimes even in minutes. We're rebalanced and moving forward instead of it's letting the mind go on its own. We need to catch it back a couple of weeks further. So no, I really love it, but it creates this resilience in ourselves. And I think in the world, there's so much happening, there's so much chaos, but we can create this inner peace, this inner stillness. And that is the true gift. And I guess that also, maybe I've never read that book, but they find peace even in what is happening there. And that is the true peace. We're all being guided. Peace with our emotions, with everything we feel, with everything that we are. And then it doesn't matter what happens, and we're not being able to be triggered from outside because we are in harmony and love with everything that is within ourselves. And I think that's for me, that is the invitation, but that's a daily commitment, and that's a daily focus and a daily deepening. Like, okay, if something is happening, or if I get triggered, it's an invitation for me to go deeper
Yes.
within, because there's a part of me that wants to be acknowledged. Like, it's a mirror effect. But that also, again, invites braveness. And but I think it's so beautiful that, because the world needs men that are in
Mm.
this balanced way, and that are this inspiration for new generations that are coming. So I really love what you're sharing, and I really, because it's different if it, I think it's so important that that message goes out, and that young boys get inspired of, okay, really embracing everything that they are, because there's so much power, there's so much wisdom, there's so much, so I think that's really amazing. Thank you.
I love that.
I want to invite everyone, if you want to check out more about Nick, I want to invite you to check out the bio in the links, and I will also add your podcast link so that people can find your podcast, because you share beautiful insights of your own journey to empower others. So please check it out. And if there was one last word of wisdom or inspiration, or what would it be in this now moment?
That's a great question. I think for me personally, what I would recommend to anyone on their healing journey, or getting into the healing journey and all these different things, is to approach it with curiosity. I think curiosity is something that we not every adult, but I think it's something I know for myself personally, I kind of lost as we kind of grow, right? Like as children, we've got all this curiosity and the sense of wonder type of thing. And I think we need to approach our healing journey the same way, right? Because I think a lot of times, like with self-awareness and such, once we start getting into healing and self-awareness and all these different things, what can happen is we can really start to become self-critical, right? Because now we start understanding all these different parts of ourselves, and we're like, oh my goodness, like I'm broken, or like something's wrong with me. And nothing's wrong with anyone, right? Like obviously there's different parts maybe that you need to work through and you need to heal, but that's only because you want a better quality of life for yourself. And obviously you're not projecting or unconsciously bleeding on other people, right? So I think, and honestly, like the relationship you have with yourself sets the tone for any other relationship in your life, right? So, but in that journey, one thing I've noticed is you need to approach it with curiosity and the kindness and compassion for yourself, right? It's about understanding like, hey, okay, I've been through a lot, but like I want to do this for a better quality like of life for myself, right? So when you start approaching your journey and what you're finding about yourself with curiosity, then you can start to, kind of go back a bit and be like, like what caused this, or like what can I change here, or like how can I proceed, as an example, right? So these different things. But I think curiosity is really the key, I would say, to a good healing journey.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that. Curiosity and wonder. And an important key you shared is also, as you step into this space of loving yourself more, honoring your boundaries, feeling like, okay, what am I worth? As you shared, like, okay, you will sometimes notice that a lot of things are shifting in your reality, and that can be confronting, or that can be painful, but it is because you're growing. I think that's such an important message you just shared, because sometimes we can indeed feel like, okay, I'm failing. No, it's just that you're finally realizing that everything you've used to be doing was not serving you, or was not self-loving, or was not. And now finally, it's almost like you opened your eyes and you see, okay, this is out of balance, and that can create. So it's really because you step into this space of love, you step into this space of empowerment, that you know, it's okay, this is no longer in alignment. I'm not doing this anymore. But that in the beginning can create a little bit friction until you feel comfortable. It's almost like this. I always love to share like this. What is it? The caterpillar going into the cocoon and then coming out of the butterfly. But if we're in this cocoon, and then it can feel really challenges, because we're growing into this more authentic version of ourselves. But that feels new. that feels okay. I haven't done that before. And the rest of the world, for me, it was really the rest of the world knows the people pleaser. Well, if I stop people pleasing, then suddenly all the people still want the people pleasing Kim, but it's not there anymore. But then you get this interaction, and that needed time till I felt comfortable enough to say, okay, no, this is who I am. I love you. I see you, but I'm not doing that anymore. So I think that's such an important thing, because sometimes we can truly, again, the mind interferes and tries to label it, and please keep going. There are so many like books, health, like self-care, honor your body, honor your emotions. There were so many empowering gems in this story. So thank you for sharing your light, sharing your inspiration, and everyone tuning in. Thank you for tuning in. And I'm really looking forward to seeing you in the next Soul Love podcast. So for now, much love and see you next time. Bye. Thank you for joining this episode of Soul Love. If you want to find out more about what we do, you can find it below. And I'll see you in the next episode. Much love.